Konnichiwa. Today we're going to talk about the main helper verbs and about the potential form. When I say the main helper verbs, I am referring to what the standard Western Japanese grammar descriptions call conjugation. And I only mention this word because I don't want you to get confused if you see conjugation referred to somewhere else. When they talk about conjugation, this is what they mean. But in fact, there is no such thing as conjugation in Japanese. All we ever do is add helper words to the 4 verb stems. And there are a lot of helper words, and most of them are just a question of extra vocabulary, so long as you don't think of them as conjugation. In some cases, they get called conjugation, in other cases they don't, and they are exactly the same process every time, and the only difference is that some of them happen to accidentally and only very vaguely resemble European conjugation and others don't. All kinds of confusions arise from confusing Japanese helper verbs and helper adjectives with conjugations, but because we're not going to use them, we don't need to worry about that here. Alright, so the first main helper verb we're going to look at is the potential verb. Now, we've already looked, haven't we, at helper words. We've looked at the helper adjectives, nai, which forms the negative, and tai, which is used for the desirability of an action. We've also looked at the helper verb, garu, which is attached to an adjective. Now we're going to look at the potential helper verb, and this attaches to the e stem. There aren't as many things we do with the e stem as we do with the a and I stems, but there are some, and only one of them is a verb, so there's no room for confusion here. The potential helper verb has 2 forms, and they are ru and rareru. People can be a little disconcerted by the go-down form of the helper verb because it's just one character, ru. But that shouldn't worry you at all, and because it only ever goes onto the e stem, can't be used on its own, it's very, very easy to recognize. Rareru is the form of the potential helper verb that goes onto ichidan verbs. And we discussed go-down and ichidan verbs before, didn't we? So, kau, buy, becomes kaeru, buy, able. Kiku, hear, becomes kikeru, hear, able. Hanasu, speak, becomes hanaseru, speak, able. Motsu, hold, becomes moteru, hold, able. And so forth. And with taberu, which is an ichidan verb, we do what we always do, simply take off the ru and put on whatever we're going to put on. So, taberu, eat, becomes taberareru, eat, able. So this is very simple, isn't it? There are only 2 exceptions to this formation of the potential form, and they are the 2 Japanese irregular verbs, kuru and suru. Kuru becomes korareru, but suru surprisingly becomes dekiru. Dekiru is the potential form of suru. And this is an interesting word because it also means come out. Literally, it's made up of the kanji out and come, dekiru. And if we say Nihongo ga dekiru, we are not saying I can do Japanese, we are saying Japanese is possible. And if we say or imply watashi wa Nihongo ga dekiru, we're saying to me Japanese is possible. And it's interesting if you see a small child perhaps trying to make something out of paper. She may say, I'm trying very hard, but it won't come out right. And this is just the way dekiru is used in Japanese, isn't it? And there are some interesting ways in which dekiru is used, which show how the idea of something being possible and something coming out are closely linked in the Japanese language, but we won't talk about that now. That's a little bit more advanced. There's only one danger area with the potential form, and it's very, very close to something we dealt with last week. So if you've seen that lesson, this one should be very easy to you. Let's look at a typical sentence, hon ga yomeru. Now the standard text usually translates this as I can read the book, but that isn't what it means, as you can clearly understand if you followed our previous lesson. Look what the ga is. The ga is marking what? It's marking the book. So who is the actor of this sentence? It's the book. We are saying something about the book. So the book is the main car and yomeru is the engine. We are saying the book is readable. It's possible to read the book. If we add watashi wa, we are saying the book is readable to me. What we're literally saying is, in relation to me, the book is readable. But this does not and cannot mean I can read the book. If we wanted to say I can read the book would have to be marked by wo, wouldn't it? And I would have to be marked by ga. And it is in fact possible to do this, but it's not what is usually done. But also remember that if we want to put stress on the ego the way English wants to, then we have to change the particles. If we literally want to say, I can read the book, watashi ga hon wo yomeru. A lot of people think this is bad Japanese. Not our place to work out whether it is or isn't bad Japanese. The point is that most of the time you will see hon ga yomeru, and hon ga yomeru can't literally mean I can read the book. It means the book is readable. So that's simple enough, and provided we remember that, we don't send all those particles into crazy illogicality. So really this is very much similar to the questions we discussed last week about tai and adjectives of desire. We just keep that ga straight in our minds, everything else will fall into place. And just as with the tai form, if we say cake ga tabetai, it's the cake that's being want-inducing. But if we just say tabetai, we do mean I want to eat, because when there's no particular food there to do the being wanted, then I do the wanting. It's the same with the potential form. So we say hon ga yomeru. To me the book is readable. But if we just want to say I can read, not I can read the book, or I can read the newspaper, or I can read Sakura's secret diary, but I can read, then we say watashi ga yomeru, or just yomeru, which means zero ga yomeru, and we really have become the subject of the sentence. And I'm sure there are people who find this confusing, but if you followed the past lesson, this should be completely clear. And let's remember that Japanese always fits together just like Lego. So the potential helper verb, even when it's just that single kana ru, is simply a regular ichiran verb, like most helper verbs. And we can do exactly the same things with it that we can do with other helper verbs. We can always recognize it because it's the only one that goes onto the e stem, and we can do everything with it that we do with any other ichiran verb. So, arukeru, can walk, arukenai, can't walk, aruketa, could walk, arukenakatta, couldn't walk. And this regularity is the same even with the irregulars. So, dekiru, possible, dekinai, not possible, dekita, was possible, dekinakatta, wasn't possible. And it's really as easy as that. And I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons, my producer angels, for helping to make these video lessons possible. I'd like to thank all my patrons and supporters, and I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.